This is Michael Spedden, and welcome to Fowl Players Radio, your one-stop shop for all of your pop culture needs. We feature interviews from musicians, actors, comics, dancers, authors, and much, much more, up-and-coming artists and beloved favorites. We've got it all, people on stage, backstage, out front, and behind the scenes. Sit back and relax. Let's have some fun.
Hey, this is Lou Maestro, and you are listening to Fowl Players Radio with Michael Spedden.
And welcome again to Fowl Players Radio. Michael Spedden here. Today's guest is James DuMont. If you want to look up the word "that guy" in the dictionary when it comes to movies and television, you're going to find James DuMont. He has got so many credits, movie credits and television credits to his name, and he came on today just to tell about some of his more current projects that are coming out. You know, for example, American Sports Story, the Aaron Hernandez feature of American Sports Story, which is on FX. He's also been a regular on the Righteous Gemstones on HBO, along with John Goodman, Adam Devine, and Danny McBride. He's also worked on Candy Cane Lane with Eddie Murphy, and he's worked in Jurassic World with Steven Spielberg, of course. So a lot of credits here, and he's just got tons of stories, and I think you're really going to find this episode a lot of fun and interesting to listen to. He does teaching and coaching for those of us that are actors that are trying to get our auditions polished up and make our self-tapes better. OnCameraWorkouts.com, and his Instagram and everything else will be listed in the show notes, as well as his IMDb page. And I tell you what, you'll see a lot of credits on there, and I know you're going to recognize them from something. So we will be back right after these words with James DuMont. Stick around. The Fowl Players of Perryville, the Mid-Atlantic's premier murder mystery company, have upcoming shows on the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad, Fifth Company Brewing, Susky River Beverage Company, Madigan's Waterfront, Maryland Party Boat, and more. If you are interested in seeing a show, our website is www.fowlplayersofperryville.com, and if you are interested in booking us, please reach out to us at foulplayersperryville@yahoo.com or 443-600-0446. Remember, every Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. and Sunday at 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time for the replay is The Back of the Rack, the Michael Spedden Show on 97underground.com, Baltimore's pure rock worldwide. We feature blasts from the past, songs you forgot you liked, hidden gems, classics that never die, local and national act interviews, and music from up-and-coming and beloved classic bands. Go to www.97underground.com and download the free app today and listen to us wherever you go, anytime, anywhere. Also, see our archive of interviews on YouTube at 97 Underground Michael Spedden. We thank you for watching and listening to Fowl Players Radio. Our main website is www.fowlplayersradio.com, and our YouTube channel is youtube.com/@fowlplayersradio. Remember, please support our guests in their endeavors. Shop small and buy local. Links to their books, albums, tickets to their shows, and much, much more can be found in the show notes of each episode. Enjoy today's show.
Hi, this is Randy Jackson from Zebra, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio.
And welcome back to another episode of Fowl Players Radio. Michael Spedden here, and today's guest is James DuMont. And I tell you what, if you ever want to look up in the dictionary the term "that guy," we have him right here. He has, tons and tons of movie and TV credits that we're going to talk about today. And there's a veteran in this business. It's, and there's nothing easy about this business at all. That you'll definitely tell us that too. It's a very hard thing, and he's had a bit of success. He's had a lot of credits here with some, really big stars, a lot of great shows, and he does great work. Definitely good at his craft as well. So, James, welcome to the show. It's great to have you today.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Yeah, it's I call myself I say the Forrest Gump of actors, because in Forrest Gump kind of shows up in all these things. So yeah, I'm like 170 credits in at this point. It's probably 200 now that I've gotten to 20 episodes of the Righteous Gemstones. So yeah, I always say to everybody, everybody's on a journey, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm a journeyman actor. And when you're on a journey, there are, benchmarks, and there are, accomplishments and things you want to do, but there's also bumps in the road. I mean, you're doing a 26-mile marathon,
Mm-hmm.
you get it, your knees kick in, and, like you get hydrated. So, you're on a journey. So, when you kind of look at the craft of it and the trajectory of it and the unfolding of it, and you look at it, not so much I have dreams, goals, and aspirations, but I think in just getting a little bit better and just focusing in on being excellent in my
Mm-hmm.
craft. The thing that I can control is the quality and caliber of my work. Um, in that regard, I'm on a journey, and a journey means that you're going to restart it over and over again, and you're going to stop and you're going to start, and you'll have trials and errors. You'll suck. You'll be invisible for a while. Then all of a sudden, people pay attention, and so if you really if you look at this as a marathon and not a sprint,
Mm-hmm.
you should do fairly well. And in that time period, just getting better, I think, even just a little bit better, I think, is one of the things of why I'm still around. Because I've watched people that are far more talented than me, or have gone to the great Yale and NYU, Juilliard, but I think they allowed the pedigree of that, or the business to kind of dictate and decide kind of who they are, as opposed to the ways in which that I work are just identifying what are the superpowers, what are the things that make you different, special, unique from everybody. What do we get when we work with you? And if you can identify those things, and understand that there are collaborators out there, directors, writers, producers, who are trying to tell stories just like you're trying to tell a story, that understanding your inherent value and what you have to offer. I think that's the big thing. What's in it for me, kind of world right now,
Yeah.
power hungry, attention. People are creating content just to get attention, not
Mm-hmm.
because they have to, not because it's a way in which they express their humanity. They're doing it for just mere attention and monetary, which is great. And you're entitled to do that. But how long lasting is that? Are you going to be able to stick around after 40 years and people
Oh,
still
sure.
and still be relevant? So I think the fun part is when you really look at it in a basic level. I always go, the reason to be an actor is, who do I get a chance to be? I get to do role play like I was a little kid. I'll be the fireman and you be the princess, and I'll come in and slay the dragon. Like, if you stay in that kind of healthy mindset of being a creative storyteller, you're never going to go tired. You're never going to go bitter. You're never going to go hungry, because you're on a journey.
Sure.
You're on a path. And so for me, I have to say that has a lot to do with why I'm still here, is that in the time period that I've been doing this, I've been trying to get a little bit better. One self-tape audition at a time, one red carpet interview at the time, one event at a time, one set, visit on set and working at a time, one take at a time.
And that's one thing. Some of the points that you've brought up here are things that I really have to kind of remind myself of a lot of times too. And it really goes for anything that you're trying to do, whether it be acting and getting into shows, playing in a band, writing music, anything in the arts. It is a
And
marathon.
or even being an athlete. Like, I look at
Mm-hmm.
what we do as creatives very much like athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Our movie stars are the same marquee players that you throw money at in every football team,
Mm-hmm.
in every basketball team, but then there's the players that it's a team effort, then there's a lot of people that kind of make that happen. And also the big benchmark is, what do you do in the off season? Are you training to get better, or are you just
Mm-hmm.
waiting for game day? And those who really kind of prepare, I believe that there's a sense of luck, but I believe you create fortune in our business.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not so much about luck, because I think when preparation and opportunity meet, that's when things start to happen. So I feel like I try to prepare myself as much as possible for um, whatever may be ahead. I don't, again, I liken what I do to boxing too, or even being a closer in baseball. I got to come in and I got to close out this game. You know what I mean? Everything else has happened. They've been there all day. They set this thing up, the the lights are there, but my job is on camera. So I have to come in and I have to do 3 masters, 3 mediums, 3 closes, or 3 strikes, 3 strikes, 3 strikes. Get us out of the inning, get everybody home, you know? So in that regard, I feel like there's things that I have to do to be prepared and ready for that. So, you know, what are you doing when people aren't paying attention and not looking? And what do you do in the off season in order to get stronger and be prepared for whatever may happen when you get on set or on game day or that day of the concert? Do you practice? Do you rehearse? You know, what do you do your drills? You know, what are the things that you do? And that has a lot to do with when I get on set, I don't necessarily know what I'm walking into sometimes.
Sure,
Sometimes
sure.
most amazing experience, and sometimes I really have to navigate a lot of things that make it difficult for me to do the work I need to do because I'm on camera. My work is on camera. So everybody else has done all these things off camera in order to be prepared for it. I have to be prepared for whatever is going to come my way. And I think that's an important component of sticking around.
Right, right. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, the constant self-improvement, the work behind the scenes, you really just can't say enough about that because it's absolutely necessary. You can't let yourself stagnate. You can't let yourself get rusty because the second you get yourself rusty is the second you get yourself called upon too. And you're like,
Yep.
oh, you know.
Oh, I had a huge audition. I was in LA for the Emmys because we're doing this. I'm doing the new Ryan Murphy series about Aaron Hernandez, the American sports story, and I had in my contract that we would go do the premiere, but they didn't do a premiere, but FX had the Bear, so they had this big event. So I went to the Fox party and for the Emmys, and so but then all of a sudden I'm having a great time and enjoying and then I get the phone call, I get this audition for an A-list director that has been on my dream list for the last 10, 12 years. And then I got to fly to New York and I'm going to the premiere of Penguin because I'm on an HBO series and they invited me there. So here I am out and about, and all of a sudden that 6 pages of heavy dialogue come in that I got to turn around while I'm between LA and New York, and got to get it in time. So yeah, you're right. It's being ready for those kind of opportunities when they come.
Sure, sure, absolutely. So let's ask you a little bit more about the American Sports Story. It's about the I guess the Aaron Hernandez situation. Boy, I'd seen some shows about that and some documentary type shows about what was
30
going
for
on
30
there.
did a thing on Aaron Hernandez. Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is Ryan picks, because I think the last thing he did was American Crime Story, but it was really OJ's. It was the OJ, it was the the story of OJ Simpson. In this case, this one I think it's an American sports story, but it's also American tragedy in the sense too, but also he was a high school phenom football player, went to University of Miami, of Florida rather, and then goes on to NFL and get in the ring. So I feel like it's an American story in that regard, but there's also just some other tragic elements to it. I think where we're at right now in terms of episode 3. He's befriended, Tim Tebow, who was born again Christian. So Aaron Hernandez is trying to get, enlightened and stay away from the path of doing drugs and getting caught up in, guns and gangs and all the power things that are kind of there. He's being tempted, but then, he's got this great friend. And so, again, Ryan Murphy does a very good job of his historical accuracy, bringing about telling a story that's interesting and provocative, also unearthing things that were kind of rumored that get checked and verified. And so, Aaron, for those who don't know the story, and I don't want to, spoil it for you, but if you do know the story, it's an American hero story, but it's also American tragedy.
Sure, sure. I've seen, several television shows about it, some podcasts about it and everything. And I tell you, it was, again, a real tragedy, the total situation, how it ended up here. And so you've also been working, for a number of seasons now on the Righteous Gemstones. That's
Yeah.
an HBO series, and you're working with this is quite a cast. You certainly,
Yep.
but you have your son with you, Kelton DuMont, as well as John Goodman, Adam Devine, Danny McBride, and yeah. So tell us about this show.
Yeah, so we're in our fourth season. We're on HBO, or HBO Max, as they're called these days.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about a televangelist church, mega church family. It's about the hilarious and disturbing hypocrisy of mega
Mm.
churches. You got John Goodman as kind of like a Billy Graham, Jimmy Swaggart, there's and his wife, his former wife is like Tammy Faye, Jim Baker, Tammy Faye, like the whole, they came from that 80s, time period where the televangelist just getting started in the late night infomercials and the massive amount of money that was, the modern version of that is like the Joel Osteens of the world, where they're hiding money in walls. And, so it
Mm-hmm.
is about the interesting hypocrisy of televangelism. But also on the other side of it is we're not poking fun at religion. It is about family. It is
Mm-hmm.
about faith at the end of the day. But it's done in a dark action kind of comedy in a particular Danny McBride way. If you saw Eastbound and Down or Vice Principals, it is the humor is intelligent, but also can be very college and sophomoric in a way, and try to. But so it's about this family. I play Chad, that is like Danny McBride's kind of right hand man. We're called the Goon Squad. We're basically kind of his we call us the ass kickers for Christ. So basically we do anything that anybody does against the Gemstone Church. He sends out the Goon Squad to kind of handle the situation. It's like Tony Soprano in the Mafia.
Mm.
And my son Kelton plays Pontius Gemstones, which is Johnstone, which is Danny McBride's son, his middle son, and
Uh-huh.
John Goodman's grandson. So lucky for us, I booked the gig, and then a little bit after that, my agent called and said they're looking for somebody to be one of the sons. There's three sons of the Gemstones, and my son auditioned, and he got it. And all of a sudden, every Father's Day, we celebrate Father's Day together, being on set of an HBO series,
Oh
which,
yeah.
we're 6 years in and we're only four seasons because we had stopped for COVID, and then we had stopped for this commercial, the Writers Guild strike and the actors strike. So, we're on our fourth season now. Hopefully we'll keep going. I would like to go 10 seasons. I told my son, don't be surprised if you get in and out of college and you're still in the show, but he's gone through high school already and he's halfway through college. And so
Mm.
we want to just keep on going. So we're on HBO. We get that lovely Sunday evening slot. That's the old Sopranos slot. It's the
Oh, Oz, The Sopranos.
Oz and It's that Sunday 10 o'clock slot. It's the
Mm-hmm.
magic Game of Thrones slot, we call it, and so yeah, that's usually our placement, and it's worked out very well for us so far. And we have an incredible, each season we bring in, a marquee kind of guest star. We've had Eric Roberts on there. We've had another Eric, so we've, it's been a good time. So we're four seasons in, and this season my son had a really, really good storyline, did a lot last season. He had a really great one as well. So, this weekend I'm going to get on a plane and go for our, wrap party and celebrate our fourth season being on a television show together, which is mind blowing.
Great. Well, congratulations. Again, wrapping up four seasons, it's the kind of thing where you're wrapping something up as a real high, but then it's also a real low,
That's right.
because, the next day you're back at the grocery store and you're like, the
That's
show's
right.
over.
Exactly. It's another year before we get back on there. And, we're on a television series. It's not unlike a movie where it's done, it's one and done.
Right.
You know, we're on the button and we have to wait to see if we get to go to do it again, and each season that we've been able to do 9 episodes a season, which is great. This is the first time in, 40 years of doing this and 170 movies and TV shows. It's like, this is the first time I've ever done 20 episodes of a series as the same character. So this is a joy for me. And, my son gets to start his career off on a really, really, really good position of like working I think it's up to 27 episodes at this point, so it's going well.
I guess one thing too, when it comes to these series, is that you never know what season's going to be your last, because I've read a number of books and I've read a number of articles and seen interviews about, like there was a number of years when The Office was on the bubble and they ended up going another 2 or 3 years or 3 or 4 years after that. So I guess kind of the challenge is that, the people, because people are so big on, the story ending, where does it begin? Where does it end? Is everything resolved at the end? But then, after a while, they have it. So let's say if they said no more Righteous Gemstones. So you're wrapped up now, the end of this
I can't
season
hear.
here. No,
I
no,
don't
no,
want
no, no, no. Okay. Or let's say they wrap up show A.
Right.
We'll say show A, okay, at the
Correct.
end of
Like
season
Shohei Bennett.
5.
Okay, good. Yes.
So we'll take all the references away from that show, but
Exactly. Isn't that good? No negative juju on that. Yeah,
right, no,
look,
no,
it happens. It's the nature of it. So go
yeah.
ahead.
But they end up, so the show could end on this season because we have all the ends tied up now. But then I
Right.
guess the challenge is if they do green light it for another year or two,
Right.
you got to know, exactly what you're guaranteed to get,
Correct.
and then kind of space the stories out and have all the changes to all the characters and everybody, all the storylines and everything, last another season. Or it could
Right.
wrap up then too. So you have to have both closure and the possibility for more opening to come up.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a real
What's great-
challenge, I guess.
But it is, but I got to give a lot of kudos and credit to Danny McBride and how he's kind of built his franchise and built his brand and built the kind of storytelling that he's wanted to do, and also how incredibly supportive HBO has been in that vision.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really look at the trajectory of how Danny McBride has kind of built this, in the beginning, the first series that he did was Eastbound and Down, where it was Kenny Powers is this kind of like, down in his luck, kind of out of work, pitcher who's, acerbic and a drunk and, like on the outs of his career. But, every single storyline just revolved around the pluses and minuses of one character. He built the story around one. It lived or died by Kenny Powers. And then the next series was Vice Principals, where he kind of split the storylines and the power between him and Walton Goggins against this other person. So there was a kind of a tag team storyline where it was the 2 against 1 and splitting. And now with Gemstones, here's what's interesting. He's built an entire ancestry tree of this family. And has gone back and forth between flashbacks in mid-season, and now flashbacks are happening in multiple episodes. Now characters that may have died are coming back to life as ghosts. So it's like he's now created a thing where it becomes it's not just revolving around one character of Kenny Powers or two characters of Danby and Walton Goggins' character. It's like it's now this entire family. And younger version of them and how they got started and going back generations of the earlier Gemstones in the family. So, he's messing around with what I think is unlimited possibility of storylines, keeping people interested in, as long as it's compelling and interesting and funny and people are going to watch. But now what's really been great is every single season, they have these little, and I've read the last episode of the season. There's a cliffhanger there that sets up an entire other season. It's not a closure. It's well, let's see. Oh, it looks like this is where this is going to go.
Right.
And this could go anywhere. But I think that, and we also start out the season, with a huge person that everybody knows. So that's so there's a lot of smart, calculated, storytelling going on by this entire group, and HBO is on board for it. So I feel fairly positive about the life of it. I think also people's availability becomes difficult. John's on the TV show The Connors, so he goes between The Connors back and forth to LA and Charleston and New Orleans where we live. So it's like and Walton Goggins is now, really kind of blown up a bit and not a bit, a lot, he's done Fallout. He just got an Emmy nomination for that. Now he's doing, a show, another HBO series in Thailand. So, I think the challenge is people's schedules, but we've been able to kind of do that. And also, I think creating a story that has unending possibilities that you
Hmm.
can go back in time and you can, project into the future, or you can kind of, play with ghosts or past life. I mean, like you have all this opportunity, and that you're
Hmm.
not building the story around just one or two characters. You literally, the characters are so amazing in this. You could take one character and do an entire episode just on them. That they're that interesting enough. Edie Patterson is incredible as Judy Gemstone, probably the funniest person in all of television right now, hands down. Doing amazing work. Walton's doing amazing work. Danny does amazing work. John and Adam, it's between Danny and Adam and Edie, it's like it's the trifecta of just hilarious people that are brilliantly talented. And then the other side of that too is because he's built this group of people together over a 20 plus year period of time, everybody loves working with each other. So the crews all know each other. So this is a family. Like going back to work is like coming home for Thanksgiving dinner. And the feast is abundance and the food is amazing and the company is amazing. Not just as my son and I talk about this all the time. The level of talent in this show is next level. And again, I've worked opposite Bryan Cranston. I've worked opposite the two Toms, Tom Hanks and Tom Cruise, Leo DiCaprio. I've worked opposite, this group of people is not only an exceptional group of talented people, they're also just really good people, and you
Hmm.
enjoy being around them. And there's something about Danny has really kind of gathers and collects wonderfully talented, but also really good people. And so uh, that are creative and fun and thoughtful and authentic and genuine and truthful and real. Like they're just so, I say to my son, I was like, I hate to break it to you, kid, but the kind of experience that you're having now is one of the best that I've had in 40 years.
Hmm.
This is how you're starting. So it may not all be as great. So enjoy this time because you may not have this kind of infectious, positive from the top down work. David Gordon Green and Jody Hill and Danny McBride, they set a tone of equality and collaboration
Hmm.
that is unlike what I find in a lot of sets. You're walking into a power structure that makes it very difficult to kind of create. This is the exact opposite, is that people are so, and then we have this incredible long list of talented people, amazing people that want to be on the show because they know it's a great experience working for Danny McBride. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you can get anybody to come on the show.
Hmm.
And so that to me is, for me, mid-career, and I really feel like I'm mid-career right now. I'm just kind of getting started. To
Hmm.
have this kind of experience and then to be able to, share it with my son, it's life-changing. It makes me feel whole and excute and excited about what's ahead,
Hmm.
And again, if it does end tomorrow, from this, at least I've had something. And each time that we come in, every single person is kind of an A-lister and they bring in their A game, Um, so that's what we're kind of focused on right now is this enjoying all the fruits that bear right now.
Yep. And that's another thing too, when you're working around people like that, A-listers and things like that, it really helps your game, I'm sure. As they say, when you're watching football or baseball or something like that, you rise to the level of your competition.
That is correct.
You also sink to the level of your or your, to this as well,
Yeah, for us, it's an all boats rise. It's like, the level and the caliber of the talent and commitment that people make starting from the top down
Hmm.
sets an environment of which you come to bring your A game. It's interesting about the Goon Squad because they said we thought that was just going to be a little side thing where you guys just kind of come in and you do your thing and then you go and like,
Hmm.
but each one of you guys is so incredibly funny individually and then collectively it's like we couldn't not write for you guys. You know what I mean? Like we like Danny needs these guys. So I think it's important to become an indispensable asset to the storytelling and the people that are there. Even when I'm guest starring on a show, I'm a guest at their
Mm-hmm.
home. It's like I'm a guest again. I use the Thanksgiving dinner as a scenario because when I'm a guest on a TV show, it's like I am an invited guest at this wonderful Thanksgiving feast
Mm-hmm.
that the regulars eat every week. But then they go, "Hey, it was great having you. There's the door. We're going to go on to another. We're going to have another feast with
Mm-hmm.
another director that, you know, so it's like, it's a weird thing of being the guest and coming in, but if you do have to kind of bring your A game every time. And the thing I've realized about working with some of the best people in our business, I've worked with Spielberg twice, Soderbergh twice, incredible generosity of spirit
Mm-hmm.
is the prevailing thing that I found with the people of working at the top of our business are committed to the excellence of it and the storytelling. And they're also just incredibly generous. This is
Yeah.
what I don't find that so much in people that we would known or have heard of that are not as positive or contributing well to the life of a set.
Mhm.
Um, People that are on the downside of their careers, are not the most generous. But
Mhm.
people who are work at the highest level, my experience has been that these are not just exceptional talents, but they're exceptional people. And that's been my experience.
I would agree, and that's been my experience too on the shows that I've done and everything. It's just a great teamwork mentality that you see there too. They bring people on board. Yeah, we've always heard about people who are difficult to work with or difficult on set and things like that. But I've been fortunate enough, on the bigger productions that I've been involved with, where, as you'd mentioned, the rising tide raises all ships.
That's
Somebody
right.
is new on set, they welcome you, they build you up, they make sure that you're in the huddle too, and you're planning on what you're going to do, and everybody knows what you're going to do, and you're included.
Right.
If they don't do that, the production's going to suffer, and everybody's going to look bad, and
Right.
it's going to make things a lot more difficult. So it is really, that is a great ethic. It's a great mentality. That whole, making sure you're building everybody up when they're new on set. That was my experience, definitely. I mean, the shows that I've done, they've reached out to me, and I tell you what, I would say my first trip to the dance, was Gotham, and I got to tell you, the three guys that I worked with, Corey Michael Smith, Robin Lord Taylor, Andrew Sellon, I would not have chosen three better people. I could
Right.
not have chosen three better people to have my first trip at the dance with. I mean, the three of those guys were absolutely tremendous. Very, because the thing is, when you get there too, of course, you want to focus on work and everything. But other than that, what do you say to
Right.
somebody?
Yeah.
Hi, but
We're
they
going to be
made you
creating
feel
some
comfortable.
characters. Right. We're going to create some characters together. We don't know each other, but we're going to do this thing
Hmm.
all together. Like, we've been here. You're coming to visit. This is great. Come in here. Come join the team.
Hmm.
I like it, a lot of the stuff we do in terms of, sports analogies. I use sports analogies all the time in terms of building a great team.
Hmm.
It starts with the owner and it starts with the coaches and it starts with the players. Do you indulge that particular player? You know what I mean? In a power game, or do you really find a way in which to understand that, there's no I in team. There's
Right.
no one player may be the marquee player in the three. But if I work with Tom Cruise on War of the Worlds, and it's like that guy sets the tone for everything. In fact, there was a
Hmm.
whole because these people have been running up and down this hill. We were shooting in Piru in Los Angeles area of like just outside of Santa Clarita area outside of Los Angeles, and there were hundreds of extras and stunt people are like running up and down this hill back. He created an entire tent where people are getting massages between takes and up because it was just, grueling
Hmm.
kind of work. But that kind of like thoughtfulness and thinking about everybody. And Tom was the first guy there and the last guy to leave. He flew
Hmm.
in a helicopter, did his work, flew out in a helicopter, came in, did his work, and came in, was the first one there and last one to leave. And I feel like when you kind of have setting that kind of tone, it just lends, it's like you said, all boats rise. It lends itself to understanding and welcoming people in. My joy now is I'm coaching students, that are trying to get on the Righteous Gemstones, and I give them all, I coach them and get them to where, the best work they possibly can do. And then, a few of them kind of book at it. And I'm like, welcome to the family. Welcome to the table. There's a seat at the table for you. And we're glad to have you. And it feels good, and then I, get DM'd by like very interesting, famous people are like, I love that show, man. I would love to be on that show. It was like, we would love that. Like I tell Danny, I was like, did you know that Juliette Lewis really wants to be on our show? And he's like, yes. And so does this person, this person, this person. And I was like, wow, okay. But yeah, it was like, it's great to be part of something that people really are kind of grapple at, enjoying, again, this entertainment. We're entertaining here at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one that was mentioned here was Unit 234, Unit 234, and you're working with Don Johnson.
Yes.
On that. What's that like? How is he to work with? And tell us, about the show.
It was great working with 80s television star Don Johnson.
I can imagine.
How about that? How about that for a politically correct answer?
Okay, sure. I'll buy that. I'll buy that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a different and interesting experience. He was also the producer on the project. It's a really interesting thriller. I don't want to kind of spoil the things, but we have an amazing cast in there. We have Jack Houston in there and Isabel Furman from the Orphan movies. So it's that one. We're hoping that's because Don has got this new show with Fox. We're hoping that something will happen with that movie. We're in the midst of trying to find a good distributor for it, but it's a very well done thriller. I was Don Johnson's right-hand man, his bodyguard, his driver, took a bullet for him, literally and figuratively. And it was a great experience. We also got to shoot in Grand Cayman Island. It's one of those magical places where you go, for all the auditions that I don't get, which is, I usually do 50 to 100 self-tapes in a given year. In a good year, 5. In a great year, 10.
Right.
And so, those other 90 auditions that I put my entire heart, soul, and passion into that didn't go my way, then you get a job where you're in Grand Cayman Island for 6 weeks and you're shooting it at night, and it leaves your days free to be on the beach and get your scuba license.
Hey,
so
amen.
I up my PADI license, and I watched the most incredible sunsets and had the most amazing food, and walked up and down the beach at sunset. Like, you kind of go, for all the things you don't get, then all of a sudden you get the dream vacation job, where I didn't, have lots and lots of dialogue. I was in a lot of scenes, and then certain scenes I have a lot of action more towards the end of the movie. But the reality is that was, it's one of those dream jobs that you go, every day I posted a picture up and people are like, I hate you. It's like, don't hate me. Just, you're one self-tape away. You're one audition away, just like I was,
Did you open any bank accounts while you were down there?
No, I did not. There was some sort of thing about, like, they were kind of shying away from it, or you had to be but I was there for 6 weeks, so I probably could have pulled it off.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. When does opening a bank account in the Cayman Islands ever end well?
Well, yes. And what's your intention? What are you trying to hide?
You always hear about on all these crime shows and everything. He had bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, and that's just, nothing good ever comes of that.
It reminds me of an old Chris Rock joke of, like, there should be, when you go to the ATM at 2:00 in the morning, there should be a screen that pops up. Hey man, come on. Why do you need $200 at 2:00 in the morning? Like, you know what I mean? Whatever you're getting money for, probably not a good thing.
That's true. Tell me about Candy Cane Lane. The opportunity to work with Eddie Murphy. What was that like?
Oh no, it was fantastic. I've worked with Reggie Hudlin before on a Disney Channel movie about a true story called it's called Safety,
Hmm.
and about a Clemson football player who has to raise his little brother while he's still in college. And that was the first time working with Reggie Hudlin, who
Oh.
I'd been a fan of his for years and years. It's a wonderful, good sports film.
Hmm.
And then he's the director of Candy Cane Lane, which was written by Kelly Younger, a wonderful playwright that I knew years ago. And Eddie Murphy was just, joy of joys. He'd been on my list of people I want to work with for a long time. I knew his brother actually, Charlie, back in the day in the New York club scene.
Hmm.
And so yeah, it was really great to work on that film. It turned out to be the big Christmas, comedy of the year,
Hmm.
and stayed on Amazon's top 10 list for a good period of time. And I'm hoping again, as we circle back around to Christmas, I'm hoping it's going to become one of like a good Hallmark Christmas movie that, that you'll get to see over and over again. So
Hmm.
it's been good.
Yeah.
It was a great time. And I, working with Reggie, it goes to show you, we talked about this before, is that, preparation meeting opportunity, and being able to come in and show up and kind of deliver. And there was all these kind of conveyor belts and all the things that they needed to kind of set up the shot. So it took them like 3 to 4 hours to set everything up.
Hmm.
But then when I arrived on set, I knocked out all my work in 20 minutes.
Wow.
And like, see, now this is why you're here. Like, like we spent hours getting the scene ready, and now you come in and you deliver. And I go, well,
Hmm.
that's why you pay me the big bucks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm looking through some more of your credits here. I was
Yeah.
seeing that you were in Roe versus Wade. It looks
Yep.
like you worked with Steve Gutenberg. He's kind of The Diner is one
Yeah.
of the popular movies here in the Baltimore area. He was
Oh,
in
yes,
that.
sure.
And what was he like?
I didn't get to work with Steve very much, and that movie, they haven't paid all the actors, so I'm not in a big, I don't, like, I'm not a big fan of putting that word, like Roe
Okay,
v.
we
Wade, interesting movie and title, but when you don't pay people, and you get all your money from the far right to make the movie to try to overturn Roe v. Wade, and it gets turned over. I don't know. I'm like, I got an opportunity to play Wade in Roe v. Wade, so they paid
mhm.
me money and I showed up, and that was great. But
Well, what we'll
yeah,
do is we'll next.
yeah, exactly. That's a next. You know what I
Okay,
mean? Like,
next.
we all got to make a living.
Sure,
Uh,
sure. How about and it looks like again another credit here with John Goodman,
yep.
Patriots Day. How about that one?
Yeah, the thing with I've had the wonderful pleasure of working with Peter Berg 3 times. I first came to New Orleans to do Deepwater Horizon. So
Hmm.
I did I was like number 4 on the call sheet of a $150 million Lionsgate movie about the Deepwater Horizon spill here in the Gulf. And Peter Berg is an amazing director. Just he shoots his films like it's a documentary.
Hmm.
The work, you have to believe everybody in these situations. He works very, very quickly.
Hmm.
And I had an opportunity to work opposite Mark Wahlberg. This was my first time working for Mark,
Oh
and
wow.
I had an incredible experience with him and Kurt Russell, who I'd been a fan with of forever.
Hmm.
And so, I worked extensively opposite Mark, and working opposite Kurt Russell. I was the head of BP. I was the vice president of BP that
Hmm.
just happened to be on the Deepwater Horizon when it exploded. So it's based on a true story about the Deepwater Horizon spill and all the lives that were unfortunately lost due to greed. And so it was an opportunity for me to really build a relationship with Peter Berg, and I did, to the point where the next film I did was Patriots Day, based on the Boston bombing that happened during the marathon.
Oh
And
yeah.
and John Goodman and I both live in New Orleans, so we got a chance to kind of go up to Boston and work together, and then go up to it's screened in Toronto as well. But yeah, that was my first time I worked with John. Was with the TV series Treme, but I mostly worked opposite the woman who played his wife,
Hmm.
Melissa Leo. I did 3.5 seasons of that, and that's your Baltimore boy. That's David Simon, the crime writer from Baltimore, the king of Baltimore in terms
Yeah.
of crime and TV. I mean, I still think Homicide is probably one of the best written television dramas ever.
Oh, it
And,
was. It
uh,
was, the
so
hard thing, the hard time that they had with that show was getting actors to want to live around here because the thing was that yeah, there wasn't really much else going on anywhere else. As you were saying too, you have John Goodman, for example, is also doing the Connors as well as Righteous Gemstones, and the traveling back and forth I think was getting to be too much because there
yeah,
was, season to season a decent amount of cast turnover,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
because of that. But he was talking, I'd actually heard some commentary from David Simon talking about how hard it was just to keep people living in Baltimore to
Oh
keep the
yeah.
production going,
No, everybody wanted to go back to New York or where LA or wherever they
Yeah.
came. It was, they didn't want to stick around. But that was an incredible, very truthful homage to the wonderful and some of the more difficult challenges of Baltimore.
Oh,
Same thing
yeah.
with we have one of the highest murder rates in the country, but we also have the most celebratory, culinary delights in the world. So they kind of go hand in hand. But for me, it was this all kind of started off. Peter Berg, and Mark, really kind of took a liking to my work, and then really to bring the the true story of the Deepwater Horizon spill, the people that had died in it, and then to go to Boston and then try to bring that story to light without with people being fearful that we're exploiting the pain of these things, whereas we're trying to tell what I think is really interesting about Peter Berg's storytelling. If you look at other films that he's made before, is he likes putting regular human beings put in life death situations where they have to make decisions. And one of the things that I think was interesting about Patriots Day, and particularly John Goodman's character playing the mayor of Boston, is that the way in which they were able to find these terrorists is they smoked them out. Is
Hmm.
they grounded every plane, they closed off every bridge, no train, no car was able to get in and out of Boston, and they smoked these guys out. These guys had multiple bombs in the trunk of their car with a GPS set to Times Square. So they were
Hmm.
going to go to Boston and do this damage, and then they were going to go to Times Square to do more damage. But because of this is also just the heart of Peter Berg's great storytelling in terms of the kind of movies he wants to make is, had they not closed off the city, blocked, smoked the guys out, they would have done so much more damage to more people in New York. And
Right.
so what's interesting about the storytelling that Peter likes to do is there is put in a life death situation, what would you do? And there was somebody on that Deepwater Horizon well who had an opportunity to turn off the well, to not have the oil come through, that led to the explosion, and
Hmm.
not feeling that they were in a position to do so. And that led to the demise of 13 people dying. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Hmm.
what do you do in a life death crisis situation? Same
Hmm.
thing that we found out in history. What do you do when a worldwide pandemic, falls into your camp? Can you make that hard, crucial decision to
Hmm.
shut everything down at whatever the cost that is in order to save lives?
Hmm.
And that's really what Patriots Day kind of came down to. So it came down to the mayor and the governor deciding we're doing Escape from New York, Escape from Boston. You can't get out. And had they not done that, I think those guys would have done far more damage, and lives would have been lost. So again,
Oh,
what
yeah.
is one do in a crucial moment? And John Goodman's character was a very much a part of that. I was part of the played a small role as the emergency management for the state, just trying to how does one navigate. We never planned on there being a domestic terrorism at the Boston Marathon. We just never anticipated it.
Oh, I
We didn't
know. I
we didn't
know.
anticipate 9/11, two plays going, like, we didn't know those things until they happen. So then what
Mhm.
does one do? And then from that, I also, built up a really good, strong relationship with Peter Berg, so that the third film I did for them was Spencer Confidential on Netflix, which, lucky for us, turned out to be the movie that dropped on Netflix the week that the entire world went indoors. At March 20th of 2020, the
Yeah.
world goes indoors, and there's a Mark Wahlberg, action, film playing on Netflix that was number one for months on end. And
Hmm.
so I play Tracksuit Charlie, which is a kind of my I have my tracksuit matches my car. I'm a mob guy that, I'm the bad guy, I'm the villain. So, I built up this rapport with Peter Berg where he needs this general, everyman, that guy face to
Hmm.
fit in the kind of storytelling that he wants to do. So I always talk to about it when I'm teaching my students and kind of coaching them about, setting their goals, dreams, and aspirations for the future. Try to find the kind of collaborators that you fit their storytelling. And lucky for me, this everyman face can fit in as the vice president of, the bureaucrat of vice president of BP, and it can fit in as the emergency management of thing, and it can fit in as the fat stretching tracksuit Charlie mob guy, and you know what I mean? Like I can do, I can do all those things. I'm
Hmm.
not one type of, it gives me a great range. But that's a
Right.
perfect example of like how we can serve each other in storytelling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was looking at some of your other credits too here, and I hope I don't hit any more skips.
It's
um,
all good. It's all
um,
good.
uh, the uh, uh, the George Carlin show. You were on that. What was
Yeah,
that like for you? He
incredible.
was.
We
Did you
we
work
we, we
with him?
need I did. And I had been a fan of his forever, never, 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 never. And this was the
Hmm.
first time that he did a sitcom. So and it was Fox. It was this new network called Fox.
Yeah.
And the only other show on the network at that point was some cartoon that I never thought would see the light of day called The Simpsons. I don't know if you heard of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the only shows that were on Fox at them were The Simpsons, George Carlin Show, and
Allman.
Tracy Ullman Show. It was
Yep.
like, and then I think maybe Living Color came a little bit after that. But yeah, it was like this new network. And George Carlin was just not used to being on a sitcom or
Hmm.
being told what to do. He's been a monologuist in a one-man show for so long, but it was an incredible experience because he's an icon. And this guy, Sam Simon, who was part of that show, The Simpsons, who knows what'll ever come of that. Like
Hmm.
Sam Simon was our executive producer. So we had really great people. But for me, it was, I'm with a comic legend. I'm
Hmm.
with a, and to this day, I go back and I watch George Carlin's stuff. There's a great thing on YouTube, The Big Club, and he did that when Bush came into office. But it
Hmm.
it literally applies to right now. It is a time capsule
Hmm.
from '90s that really fits to 2024,
Hmm.
and that's just the mark of his brilliance, is just being able to be that astute, speak truth to power, the idiocy and the hypocrisy of freedom of choice. We go
Hmm.
to the grocery store and we can choose all the cereals we want, but we only have two political parties. You're just
Yeah.
like,
Right. Yeah. I know. I've heard him
what's up
talk
with
about
that?
things like that. Yeah. I
Like,
know. I
you're like,
know.
give me choices of 8 million cereals, but I can only pick one, two political parties. It just doesn't make any sense,
Mhm.
a country with all this freedom. And so like this is it was a joy for me, working on that. And it was also my first, like you said, the first day at the dance. That was my first sitcom ever, to
Wow.
watch in and go like my first sitcoms with George Carlin. I'm like, that's not a bad thing.
Hmm. And yeah, well, and the other thing with him too, was like I always loved his just observational humor.
Oh
It was
yeah.
just funny as hell too.
Yeah.
I
He
think
was a
one of the
bitter,
first.
angry guy, but he was bitter, angry guy because of how this, like I just said, how silly we focus on things that just don't matter,
Mhm. Very
That,
true.
that
Very true.
observation of like Jerry Seinfeld is an extension of that. Like, well, is that everyone? Like, do we really have to do this? So there is that kind of very human observation,
Hmm.
but not sugarcoating and trying to sell it. Just being
Hmm.
very speaking truth to power, I think. And I think Jon Stewart is probably probably the perfect example of a modern day kind of George Carlin, in my opinion.
Yep. And yeah, one of the first things I ever saw of him was Carlin at Carnegie. That was one of my favorites at all. That was like when cable TV first came out. You could,
That's right.
finally
Oh, he
get
was
to
a
see
he was
these
a king
things.
of HBO. Like those HBO comedy specials started with George Carlin. That's the
Oh
truth.
yeah, he must have done, I've got at least 6 or 7 of them at least. Yeah, and then he was always part of like the comic reliefs and things like that that they
Yeah.
would do on there as well. Very well entrenched with them. So I was looking at your a little more at your bio here, and um, you were working on a project, My Life as a DJ. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, well, that's something you and I can kind of relate to. When I was 10 years old, I my dad used to have an extensive record collection.
Hmm.
And my parents had just got divorced. I was like 5 years old. And my this is a cool little story. My dad was an international traveling salesman. And so
Hmm.
he would leave me with the landlord's the super's wife would babysit me when he would travel overseas. And one of the things that I told this story recently, one of the things is that I started to pull. I liked music. I liked playing records. I liked being on my own. And so I pulled a Frank Sinatra song, Summer Wind, and she started to cry and weep and dance to the song. And I didn't know why, because her son had just died in Vietnam. This was 1970.
Oh.
But what was interesting about it was it sparked off a little thing in me of realizing that I could affect people in a certain way. And I'm a 5-year-old kid, but I was like,
Hmm.
the power of music, the power of being able to take some sort of action that led to somebody. And she did have this lovely, fond memory of her son. It was a sad one, but playing that song kind of brought her to that, brought her to the great moments she had with him. And it sparked off in something in me very early on at a time where I felt very kind of powerless, and I was just between my parents' divorce. I just didn't know where I was going to fit in the world. And then I realized, wow, there's this thing I could play this music and it could make people feel things. And you know what music is, you play that song and it's like people go right to that. I knew what I was wearing. I knew who was with me. I knew, I could tell you all the lyrics. Like it's this kind of beautiful time capsule. And then another big earlier thing for me was when I was a kid, the first season of Sesame Street was on. And I was glued to the television, and my mom was like all over me, like, stop being in front of the TV. You can't be in front of the TV, because everybody's worried about this TV being this thing. And I saw kids on the television. I go, I want to do that. I
Hmm.
want to be on TV. So a combination of those two things, which was the seed of like, I would love to be one of those kids that are on TV, and then realizing that even as a 5-year-old kid, I could do something that could have an influence on people, awoke in me the kind of what I called, everybody, the hero's journey, as if you're a fan of certain writers. But my point is that I started creating this one-man show, because from there I then end up DJing at my I got a record collection. I would create my own DJ. I would do shows that I recorded on. I had reel to reels. I had a console. I had cassette tapes. I would make tapes for people. Hey, this is WJKD radio. I'm Jimmy Dime. I'm your DJ today. We got a request coming in. So I was like creating a world by myself to tell stories, to
Hmm.
kind of calm myself from being alone, and but realizing that through music, through that, I could have an impact.
Hmm.
And so I started creating this one person show that I'm thinking about dusting off now that my kids are grown and off to college. And I was like, maybe I need to bring that show back. Like that was, so I did that just before my oldest was born. And I'm thinking about polishing it off and bringing it back, because there's something about, and as you can tell, it's something about the DJ's influence, that song,
Hmm.
Last Night a DJ Saved My Life. And the fact that you get requests, and that you're part of people's lives,
Yes, I
and
was going to add that. Yeah.
you're part of people's lives, and the music you play and the stories that you tell. um I think we've kind of got lost in that a little bit. I think we've lost the power of radio. But now, podcasts are now replacing what that kind of influence and impact that radio used to have. So I went from being like that little kid to playing music for my friends and playing and creating my own little radio shows. And then my Cub Scout troop, I played for their Pinewood Derby. And then in the eighth grade dance, I was the DJ at my eighth grade dance. And that led to learn how to learn how to spin records from the guy that created house music. So that was at a place called Dingbats. And from there was a bouncer there named Theo who became Mr. T. So it was like, that got me to New York. I got to work the last summer of Studio 54. I pulled records for that. I worked in the clubs in New York City, Limelight, Palladium, Danceteria. So from that little thing opened up all the possibilities of work. I mean, Studio 54 was the most iconic, discotheque in all of history. And the fact that I got to be there and meet, Bianca, and I got to meet Mick Jagger, and Brooke Shields was in there, and she was my age, and Drew Barrymore was even younger, and she was in the club. So, it was like this interesting time capsule of my time of being a DJ, and how it kind of led to me finding my own way of telling stories and having an impact. And that's kind of what that story's about.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, gosh. Well, James, I've really enjoyed listening to your stories and everything today. This is absolutely fascinating. And I definitely have to have you come back. I mean, you have an open door, to come here at any time and promote whatever you want to promote, or tell us some more stories and everything. This is absolutely tremendous.
Stories. We could go stories on each one of those particular. We didn't talk Dallas Buyers Club. We could talk about that another time, but yeah. So I think, and also I teach, I teach an on-camera workout. It's called oncameraworkouts.com. And I teach actors how to create self-tapes in a competitive way in order to, get jobs. These are the way in which we kind of interview. So at some point, I'd love to talk about that and other things.
Sure. So, tell us about
one. I'll have lots more to talk about when more gigs come my way.
Well, sure. Tell us about oncameraworkouts.com, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. So I think, I started teaching about 9 years ago, and I just posted something today on my Instagram, which is my name, James DuMont, DuMont. And then on our Instagram page, which is On Camera Workouts, plural, on Instagram. And after the 9 years, I've been coaching. I have 2,000 students all over the world, which just kind of blows my mind. So in the last 9 years, I've been coaching live. And then the last 4 years, I moved everything online. Because I lived in Los Angeles and was working in the South, and now live in the South and work in New York and LA and internationally. The business has changed to self-tapes, like instead of flying in there and being in in New York or LA or going into the rooms, although we're getting back to some semblance of live auditions or callbacks, but everything is all virtual now. So I just happened to be the guy. I feel like I was the guy in the desert with a whole bunch of water, because when COVID hit, everything moved to self-tapes, and there I was, having been, self-taping for 15 years and booked well over $1 million worth of work. I booked, Deepwater Horizon office. I booked Gemstones now 4 seasons later from one self-tape. Jurassic World, Dallas Buyers Club, which got 3 out of 6 Oscars. Trumbo, I worked opposite Bryan Cranston. That all came from a self-tape. And so I teach people, I do what fundamental, I call the core work, which is I teach people script analysis, how to break down an entire script, how to break down scenes, audition scenes. And I teach on Wednesday. I do a Wednesday day class, which focuses on self-tape. People upload a couple of self-tapes. I give them notes or feedback. They're getting actor to actor feedback in terms of how to strengthen their self-tape. And then when we pick a show, like this last month, we did The Bear, which got 23 Emmy nominations. So we focus on a show for the entire month. This month, October, we're focusing on Chicago Fire, the Dick Wolf procedural show. So the first week we'll read the entire script and break it down. Second week, I'll pull 5 scenes and we'll break those scenes down. And then the third week, you'll pick one of those 5 scenes and you'll shoot it as a self-tape, focusing on your eye lines. Who are you looking to, when, and why? And then the last week, there's a thing that's, I think the difference between a good self-tape and a great self-tape is we have to be reminded that film and television is a visual medium. Oftentimes we're just memorizing words, but we're not creating visually what's on the other side of the camera and where everybody is. So often there's nouns, I call it visualizing nouns, is bringing nouns, person, places, things to life visually. And that's a skill set that you have to build towards. So you got to find it in the script, got to be able to know how to craft out an audition. You got to be able to figure out who you're looking to, when and where and why. And then you got to be able to create and paint a picture as if on the other side of this, frame it's a blank canvas for you to create a world. And if you can make that world truthful, grounded, believable, authentic in the comforts of your own home, you're going to get to do it on set. And that's been my experience. So I teach people how to go from self-tape to set. I'm not an acting teacher. I basically am a working actor. And I have, tools and techniques that get people working very quickly, especially no matter where you're starting. Somebody new, brand new. I have people that are doing this for the first time, the first self-tape ever. And then people that have done, hundreds, if not thousands, so I coach people from all over the world.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, on camera workouts with an S.com.
Yep,
I'll be sure to put that in the show notes of the episode. And I know you have an IMDb page. Are there any other websites or anything that you'd like us to mention?
Yeah, as I said, I'm on Instagram, which is James DuMont, DUMONT. And then our On Camera Workouts has an Instagram page, which is exactly that, at On Camera Workouts.
Okay. And
I think I'm on X, and I'm also on Thread, but I don't really get on either of those too much. I got to focus on Instagram and Facebook. We have a Facebook page, which is James DuMont's On Camera Workouts, which is a long title, but you can find it. Yep.
Right. Well, I know what you mean about the different social medias. Like some of them are like, what's the point?
Yes.
I just, you post stuff on there, nobody follows you, and you're like, oh, well,
right. Yeah. Exactly.
I'm not on here acting like an ass, so maybe I'm missing the boat on that one. So
yeah, it's more for business purposes and to
sure.
And also I throw a lot of stuff. I say to people that are starting out, like, again, I'm going to have to bring everything over to YouTube as well, because people are also doing a lot of YouTube searches about on-camera classes and auditions and things. And I have so much content. So I just, that's another big thing I need to kind of do, is move things over there just so that people can always access it. For me, I'm in the of service part of my career at this point. I've had as my son said, if you stop today, you should be pretty happy that you were, a kid from Chicago that got his SAG card on the movie Blues Brothers, and you're 170 credits in, and you've done some really great stuff. So take a bow, which I do. Yep. But also kind of like, so what I feel I just share, I'm in the sharing part of it. I'm not trying to, my classes are very affordable. They're half of what they would be charging in every other major market. I keep them small so that I'm really hands-on and give people a lot of stuff. I also have this thing on Monday nights where I help people create original content for the last 4 years. It's a free class. It's called Monday Fun Day. And if people want to develop, pilots and features, they get to, read for free. The writers get their work read. And this is a way in which that actors can be creative, be around other creatives, and, get to act every Monday for free. So, and also from that, about a dozen short films have been made and put all over the world. And now these pilots are getting their material strong enough to be put out there to try to get made. So, yeah. Great. So for me, I'm feeling like it's about generosity of spirit. I share from my experience. I've made a lot of mistakes. Hopefully I'm trying to guide people away from not making some of the same foibles and mistakes and things that I had. So I kind of, sharing from wisdom, knowledge, and experience, and the wisdom's calling from trial and error,
Great. Well, good. Well, I'll be sure to list all these things in the show notes so people can find you and follow up on, possibly seeing what you have to offer and, following and taking you up on it.
Love it. I appreciate it.
I'll also link your IMDb page so people can see that long list of credits. It's like, if you have time to read War and Peace, you probably finish that first. But hey, amen to that,
What? You're in this? Well, what? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I created this kind of thing called the sizzle and steak reel, where I had an editor, Emmy-winning editor, put it together, and it had like 40 projects in 7 minutes. I was like, what? So it's like, he's in that,
Mhm. Well, great. Well, good for
Love
you.
it.
Well, again, James DuMont, thank you very much for being with us here on Foul Players Radio. And folks, thank you all for listening. We will see you all next time. Again, actor James DuMont and all of his links and social media will be in the show notes. So thank you all for listening today. And thanks for tuning in and listening today to our interview with James DuMont. I mean, God, what a storyteller. He's got so many great stories from all of the movies and television shows he's worked on. He also has his service, oncameraworkouts.com, to help actors polish up their auditions and get better and book more work. And all of his links and everything to his social media and his on-camera workouts and his IMDb page will be found in the show notes. Folks, remember to get out and support local arts and entertainment, buying tickets to shows, albums, CDs, t-shirts, books, whatever's out there goes a lot to helping our entertainers stay in business. So make sure you're doing that. Remember, these things make great gifts and even better experiences. Remember to go to foulplayersradio.com, hit the like and subscribe button, as well as our YouTube page, youtube.com/at Foul Players Radio. And folks, we will see you all next time. This is Michael Spedden signing off. And hit that like and subscribe button. Don't make me come get you. See ya.